Research, Innovation and Science Partnerships, Registrar, Bursar, University Librarian, Provost of the College of Medicine and Postgraduate College, Dean Faculty of Arts, Deans of other faculties and of students, Directors of Institutes and Centers, Heads of Departments, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The 608th University of the Inaugural Lecture will be delivered by Professor Isaac Ukpokolo of the Department of Philosophy on behalf of the Faculty of Arts. Professor Isaac Ukpokolo was born on 15 December 1957 into the family of late Chief Christopher Ukpokolo and Mrs. Etura Ukpokolo of Goha, Eastern Southeast Local Government Area of Ogun State, Nigeria. He attended St. Denis Primary School, Ugboa, and Our Lady of Fatima Grammar School, Auchi, Edo State, for his primary and secondary education, respectively. Between 1975 and 1983, he taught at St. Denis Primary School, Ugboa, Uruepan Secondary School, and Ugboa Grammar School at different times before proceeding to the then Bendel State University, now Ambu Fali University, Epo, in 1983. In 1984, due to the rationalization of programs at the then Bendel State University, he transferred to the University of Ibadan to continue his Bachelor of Arts, BA degree in Philosophy, which he completed in 1987. From 1987 to 1988, he participated in the compulsory one-year NYSC scheme at Inked Secondary School, Ukadofo, Akwa Ibom State, after which he returned to the University of Ibadan for the Masters of Arts degree program in Philosophy, at the end of which he came out best in the graduate class and was retained as assistant lecturer. He proceeded to the PhD degree program, which he obtained in 2003. His area of specialization are epistemology, philosophy of science, and metaphysics. Professor Isaac Ukpokolo joined the Department of Philosophy, University of Ibadan, as an lecturer in 1991. He was promoted to lecturer 2 in 1994, lecturer 1 in 1997, senior lecturer in 2004, and a full professor in 2012. Professor Ukpokolo has made his mark in the academic community with about 100 publications. In both local and international outlets, including books, book chapters, journal articles, and a monograph. Under his administration as acting head of the department 2014 to 2016, the Department of Philosophy signed a memorandum of understanding with Osigwe Anyam Osigwe Foundation, which eventually sponsored workshops and conferences in the department. The department also initiated a course on industrial experience titled Philosophy in Practice, which eventually took off in the 2022-2023 academic session. During his administration, the department also initiated the course Methodology of Research and Writing in Philosophy for undergraduate students, which commenced effectively in the 2022-2023 academic session. The Master's Degree Program in Professional Ethics, MPE, was also initiated during his administration as head of the department. Professor Isaac belongs to a number of professional academic bodies: Fellow, Philosophers Association of Nigeria; Member, Catholic Philosophers Association of Nigeria; Member, International Society for African Philosophy and Studies; and Member, Advisory Board, Springer Contribution to African Philosophy Book Series, London. He has taught at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels in the Department of Philosophy and has supervised numerous Bachelor of Arts long lessons and over 70 Master of Arts degree dissertations. He has also successfully supervised and completed 3 Master of Philosophy MPhil degree dissertations and 9 PhD theses, with 6 in progress. He has taught as an associate lecturer and professor part-time at the Dominican Institute and Dominican University, the Catholic Major Seminary of St. Peter and Paul, Bodija Ibadan, and St. Albert the Great Major Seminary, at various times. In his capacity as a teacher and professor at the institutions, Professor Ukpokolo has contributed to the formation of over 200 Catholic priests serving in Nigeria and across the globe. Some of them have gone ahead to become Catholic bishops. Professor Ukpokolo has served in the department, faculty, and university in many capacities. He was member, timetable committee in the Department of Philosophy and the Faculty of Arts, member, room allocation committee, Faculty of Arts, examination officer, Department of Philosophy, postgraduate program coordinator, Department of Philosophy, acting head of department, and member, Senate Committee for the Award of Emeritus Professor. Outside the University of Ibadan, Professor Ukpokolo has contributed immensely to other universities and the nation in general. He has served as excellent examiner to various universities, including the University of Lagos, Africa, and Lagos State University of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, University of Port Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Oka, University of Abuja, Ambrose Ali University, Ekoma, and Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, among others. He has assessed candidates for various academic positions in the universities, including professorial grades in the University of Lagos, University of Calabar, Ambrose Ali University, Benin State University, Kogi State University, University of Jos, University of Abuja, National Open University, University of Ghana, and University of Pretoria, South Africa. Professor Ukpokolo has served as chairman of the National University Commission Accreditation Team for state, federal, and private universities with philosophy programs in Nigeria. Professor Ukpokolo is not only an intellectual and academic, but also participates in Christian apostolates through Catholic charismatic spirituality, where he has served as leader at local, national, and international levels, rising to national chairman, Catholic Charismatic Union, CCI, and coordinator, Anglophone West African region of the CCI, representative in Rome. At one point, he led the Catholic Charismatic Union of Nigeria Leadership Training Institute at the national level, equipping leaders with an understanding of the interface between faith and reason. He initiated the formation of the National Sisters Wing and Youth Wing of CCRF to encourage inclusivity in Christian organizations. Professor Ukpokolo is happily married to Professor Francisca Chinyere Ukpokolo, and the marriage is blessed with 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. It is indeed my pleasure now to invite Professor Ukpokolo to deliver his lecture titled Therapeutic Philosophy and Knowledge Discovery. Professor Ukpokolo.
Vice Chancellor, ably represented by the Vice Chancellor Administration, the Vice Chancellor Academic, the Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation, Community Partnerships, Registrar, Bursar, Vice Librarian, Provost of the College of Medicine and the Postgraduate College, Dean of our Faculty of Arts, deans of other faculties and for the students, directors, institutes, and centers, health departments, law, spiritual, and temporal, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. There are often certain ties in the affairs of men, which Gabriel, chorus, piano, and drums symbolizes in each of us. not in the narrow sense of a class of culture or to have a point, but in a much wider sense of indeterminacies which commonly and continually confront us as humans and stand in need of therapy. This symbolism, though concealed in the midst of our daily experiences and tragedies, is revealed in the strength of words. Vice Chancellor, sir, let us hear him. When at break of day at the riverside, I hear jungle drums telegraphing the mystic rhythm, urgent, raw, like bleeding flesh, speaking on the primal youth at the beginning. I see the panther ready to pounce, the leopard standing about to leap, and the hunter's caught his spears towards. My blood ripples and turns torrents. Topples in years. At once I was my mother's laps as suckling. At once I was walking simple paths with no innovations. Rugged, passion-naked warmth of pouring feet and groping hearts in green leaves and wild flowers. Then I hear a wailing piano, solo speaking of complex ways in tearful with concerto, of faraway lands in new horizon, with coaxing the menuendo, counterpoints and crescendo. But what's in that very of its complexities, it ends at the middle of a phrase at the dagger point. And I, lost in the morning mist of an age at the riverside, keep wandering in the mystic rhythm of the jungle drums and the concerto. Vice Chancellor, sir. Distinguished audience, this inaugural lecture is the 5th from the Department of Philosophy since the inception of the department in 1974. The first was delivered by Professor P.O. Bodwin, 1983, of blessed memory, followed by Professor K.E. Uwabi, 2011, also of blessed memory. Then Professor A.B. Ekanla, 2020, and Professor O.A. Oyeshile, 2024, both of them of living memory. My presentation this day is yet another sip from the same cup of solemn academic tradition handed down to us to today. And so, I am so grateful to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Kayode Adebowale, for granting me this intellectual space. I thank the Dean, Faculty of Arts, Professor Aro Olaniyi, for nominating me to deliver this lecture on behalf of Faculty of Arts and to distill a problem area in my scholarship and present to this hallowed audience some problematics identified in our lived experience, our denial or ignoring of it having produced and come out with severe consequences. These problematics, Vice Chancellor, sir, are represented and captured in the expression poverty of the mind, to which philosophy as a discipline and activity has come to provide therapy. What is poverty of the mind? Poverty of the mind refers to the lack or ignoring of certain forms of consciousness required for meaningful engagement with reality and the enhancement of full humanity, always in the forms of intellectual and moral impoverishment that lead to distorted ways of being in the world. Now, when critical reasoning, intellectual enlightenment, ethical reflections, and historical consciousness are underdeveloped or mitigated or even denied. Individuals begin to exhibit fragmented dispositions, substituting very superficial and wrong interpretations of reality for self-understanding and reasoning. Vice Chancellor, sir, such condition will limit the dispositions and acquisition of knowledge, true knowledge, which comes only by entanglement with the true realities. Now, when we consider this situation, Vice Chancellor, sir, we are put in difficult dogmatic era. In our present world is all over the place. One, it shows in existential materialism, or, if you like, the enhancement of money and material success as the primary markers of worth and survival. Two, the prevalence of political and economic corruption becomes abundant. Social validation of, if you like, fraud, for instance, the Yahoo phenomenon in Nigerian palace becomes very common. And finally, the erosion of civic and moral sensibilities become aroused. For sure, these are not just mere expressions of moral feelings, no, but they are symptomatic of a deeper crisis of cycles of forced living and systemic dysfunction. Ukpokolo 2022, and so on. Vice Chancellor, sir, as I attempt a statement of these problematics, there shall also be attempt to highlight some positions that act as orientations for engaging the conditions therein to bring about some therapy. This is the mission of philosophy, a mission which has lasted through the history of ideas. My predestined journey to and in philosophy. Vice Chancellor, sir, as it is common with many secondary school students of arts option, I was interested in being a lawyer. My Dean of Law will testify to this. Those who were not there then. But I then took the joint admission exams. Don't ask me how many times. What I was not given admission. It was the year that I actually decided to enroll and took the exam for philosophy that I got the man that I would have had to enter for law. So this happened, and I went into law training, into philosophy training in Ekoma, Bender State University, then called. I went to law. But you see, at the end of the first year, the social program in Ekoma was discontinued as a result of nationalization exercise, along with some other programs that were discontinued. And so students were offered a chance of choosing to stay, to change to other departments in Ekoma, or choose courses, or to go for philosophy in other universities. At this point, the then department, Professor James Blocker, an American scholar, offered to seek admission for us at the University of Ibadan. where Professor P. Uboduni was then serving as Dean, Faculty of Arts. But Professor Uboduni was ready to take 3 students out of the 50 candidates affected. So Blocker was requested to bring in just 3 people, the best students. So he brought in Victor Agobedia, John Ogiadobe, and one Isaac Ukpokolo. Vice Chancellor, sir. You see, shortly after I had resumed and started classes in philosophy, my name came out as one of those selected to transfer to law in Ekoma. But then you know, I had already chosen philosophy. Or will I say, philosophy had already chosen me. So I was in philosophy. At the end of my BA degree and the NYSC mandatory program, I returned to my MA program at University of Ghana, at the end of which I again turned out the best in my graduating class. My teachers are here. Professor Bello is an erudite scholar. He supervised my MA and my PhD. He's seated in this audience. And so, at the end of that, I was retained assistant lecturer. This is why I call this session the predestined journey through adult philosophy. But it's very clear to me that my journey was a predestined one. For we are told God has done this because those whom he foreknew, he will predestine. And those he predestined, he will call. And those he called, he will justify. And those he justified, he will glorify. Do I not look glorified there? Right, Chancellor. So I see it as a point of choosing to take philosophy as a predestined apostolate, as a teacher of philosophy. Having said that, I will look at a meta-philosophical foundation for knowledge. If you look at the title of this lecture, it is Therapeutic Philosophy and Knowledge Discovery. I will begin with the second conjunct in this conjunction. Vice Chancellor, sir. So I want to look at this. If we imagine the entire questions or the central questions of education reconstructed as a judicial hearing, it will be deciding 2 fundamental questions. One question will be, how is human knowledge possible? The second one will be, why is human knowing necessary? In respect to these questions, Vice Chancellor, sir, what has emerged and has been so sustained in my scholarship is this, that knowledge is discovered, not produced. And 2, the purpose of true knowledge is therapy. And so, the next question will be, what is knowledge? What is this thing called knowledge? Vice Chancellor, sir. The concept of knowledge has a semantic history that dates back to the ancient Greek thought, who saw knowledge as a rational, fixed, certain, universal understanding, as distinct from mere opinion or practical skills. It was Plato who first did this contrast and saw that knowledge, whereas knowledge is certain and rational, opinion is simply referred to as belief that do not have full justification. And for Aristotle, his student, he classified knowledge as one of the intellectual virtues. In general, in the times of the Greek period, knowledge was defined. And up to now, it is so as the infallible, unchanging apprehension of general principles and causes. You find there Ukpokolo 2023a. And they will say this, that neither the infallible, unchanging apprehension nor the general principles and causes are produced. They are discovered. So next is, how is knowledge produced? How is knowledge discovered? How is knowledge possible? Vice Chancellor, sir. The movement of the craft, the epistemic or cognitive motor towards discovery of knowledge goes with a number of distinct activities of the faculties of man. One is the faculty of the sense experience. We have experience. This is followed by understanding. We subject our experience to understanding. Then followed by judging. We have to judge what we understand. And followed by decision. We decide having understood. At the same time, Vice Chancellor, sir, we also, our senses and our intellect also go through another set of activities. The one I call cleansing of mental cobwebs. That is, we clear our mental cobwebs of errors, false beliefs, prejudices, biases that seem to stand in the way. You see this examined and discussed in Plato's allegory of the cave. You see it in Francis Bacon's doctrine of idols. Or see it in Edmund Husserl's principle of epoche and intentionality. Next to the, along with this, if you like, is what I refer to as epistemic skepticism. That is some kind of radical caution, or what we refer to as chastity of the intellect, where we examine issues with rigorous doubt. That is what Joseph Kayana would call skepticism, which is say it is referred to it as the chastity of the intellect. And he said that it is shameful to surrender it too soon or to the first command. There is nobility in preserving it coolly and proudly through a long use till at last, in the ripeness of instinct and discretion, it can be safely exchanged for fidelity and happiness. So we subject all our ideas to a form of skepticism. Then we also have what we call acquaintance with ideas. That is the next. Apart from skepticism, we have to go with acquaintance with ideas, which we always find with knowledge. And this is what we find in the works of Von Schelling, Vice Chancellor. Having said that, we find out that it is not possible for us to go on to arrive at knowledge without going through these positions. These positions by themselves are not production process. They are formation process and geared towards discovery of knowledge. Now, why is knowledge, or why is knowing necessary? Right, Chancellor, sir. Through knowledge, we are offered the opportunity to remedy our wounded minds, to remedy the minds that we have. Ukpokolo 2017, 2018, 2018B, 2018C. And how does it happen? By its critical and rational activity, philosophy interrogates our worldviews that we hold, continually examining those precepts we hold, we adopt in choices we make, the decisions we take, and the actions we place. The we here refers to the human person. So we need to look at the ontology, the being of the human person. That's why I refer to it as a being towards formation. The ontology of the human person. Vice Chancellor, sir. The conception of the human person that I have had for many areas of my research, and which also is very central in this lecture, is the one that is coming from the works of the philosopher Thomas Aquinas, where we are told, when he says that the human person is a holomorphism, a position that has the mind and matter, form and matter, body and soul. And the soul is taken to be the character of existence, the principle of vitality. And there it has the intellect and the will are the two major pillars. The object of the intellect is truth. The object of the will is good. The union, the position, the nobility of the human person is contained in the harmony of the activities of the intellect and the will. The harmony of truth and the good, the absence of which brings about and announces what I refer to as metaphysics of corruption. That is why I believe very strongly, I argue that it is not for us to begin to look at how to punish people who have done. What it is to take them through. It's a sickness, it's a clinical case. So the person needs to be educated, coming from the word educare, which is on the word that means liberation, to come out, to set free, to let go. This is why I believe strongly, as I've argued, that there is a great difference between education and literacy. Someone can be very literate and yet not educated. Because one is literate and does the things that are only doable by people who are not yet, they are still in prison, they are not yet liberated. The liberation will come through a combined effort of education and philosophy. And this is where we talk about movement from producing to forming and discovering knowledges, expounding a philosophy of education. Right, Chancellor. Two paradigms of flow of thought will confront us in this part of the discussion. One is that do we move from producing to forming graduates in schools, or is it from producing to discovering knowledge? To provide some kind of content for this sharing, I will take us to an interaction that I had with a group of people, from educators, university administrators, CEOs, and even the priests involved in this. The question I was asked at the point is, Professor, knowing that I'm a university teacher, why is it, the question went, that students, graduate produced from Nigerian universities are largely unemployable? I did not decide to argue this or begin to argue for the correctness or veracity of this claim. Rather did I want to look at the validity of the argument. I just went down to look at the fundamental belief which concerns me and concerns therapeutic philosophy. And that is the question of the notion of production. Seeing production as a process. Education of students in university as a production process, not a formation process. So that when students are called into school, they go through a process of production. This idea rests on a basic thinking that the human person is subordinated to economy. And the economy itself is understandable only in terms of production. And if this is the case, then it means that the human person can only be judged in terms of production. But for me, it has always been that the universities are not meant to produce, but they are meant to form minds of individuals, and actualize the inner character that we have to a particular level of acceptation. This explains why the man asks the question, why is it that our graduates that we produce are usually unemployable? We don't really produce. If we look at the fact that the graduates themselves are not a matter of production but of formation, we will not be thinking about production. I talked about this in my work, Ukpokolo 2012, 2015, 2018. More so, Vice Chancellor, sir, the notions of production and formation are not synonyms. Because they do not share any known, similar point of reference. This, therefore, is understood when we talk about the idea of graduate production. And the idea of graduate production is implicated in that of knowledge production. And just as the conception of graduate production is contested by the notion of discovery, so also the idea of knowledge production is contested by formation. Ukpokolo 2012. In all this, Vice Chancellor, sir, we look at the goal of education. The goal of education, the real goal of education is to transmit knowledge. And knowledge transmission is done in form. In real education, transmission of knowledge comes by transmission of form, not by transmission of curriculum content, as we have it most times. And this is why what we have in mind when we look at the mottos of universities. It is a matter of transmission of form, forming the mind and characters of people. If you look at, for instance, I take a few ones. The motto of UI, Mr. Padam, is for knowledge and sound judgment. This is not attained by a mode of production. It's attained by a mode of formation. And if you look at another one that I picked in the University of Lagos, you have indeed and in truth. And if you look at the one of UNN, like I did in Africa, it says to restore the dignity of man. That is also, I also think the dignity of woman too. Then if you look at the one by University of Florida, they say in the character of the citizen lies the welfare of the state. What is truer than that? This particular aphorism or icon also say the same thing which the Mr. Balance motto says. Talking about how we are formed. Running through all these, we find the universal ideas that are help to conduct the life of a person, the life of a man. Now, to arrive at these, we must look at some cautions that have been pointed at us. We have had a Plato who will tell us that the caution that except the philosopher becomes a king, or the king becomes a philosopher, we will not have peace. And Vice Chancellor is a professor, and anybody who is here who has a PhD in anything is a doctor of philosophy. And so, what is expected is that by this collection of this tag, we are to expend a therapeutic approach to life, to all we see and all we experience. That is where I'm very excited to look at therapeutic philosophy and knowledge discovery. Now, we should always try to confront these things. And if you look at the statement of even Plato, Aristotle, Bacon, Kant, they all said the same thing, warning us about not living away philosophy. I will have also the statement of the Pope, who says that we should be careful in examining these things that we have around us that turn everything into statistical data. And remember the center of it, which is the human person. Now, we now see the second part of the conjunction, therapeutic philosophy. Vice Chancellor, sir. The adjective therapeutic philosophy means to minister to, or to engage, or to cure, or to care for. This particular word originally went beyond medicine to include all forms of caring and actualization and bringing the human person to a proper reality. In philosophy, Plato spoke of therapy of the soul to mean the care for the inner being that we have. And this can only come for us in philosophy. Therefore, therapeutic philosophy has to do with is a way of life of directing and enhancing the human good and development of life. Next is the features of therapeutic philosophy. In case we want to engage the discourse or the application of philosophy as a therapy, what do we expect? We must employ, develop, and engage critical thinking. We must also employ self-examination. For a life not examined is not worth living. We must also employ principles of ethics. When you talk about respect for the human person, you talk about justice, you talk about love of good for the person and avoiding harm for them. Then you talk of the question of goal-orientedness. What is the goal of therapy? It is to come up with a person that is full and complete, with the desires that have to do with the desire for truth, the desire for good, the desire for God, and the desire for love. Now, doing therapeutic philosophy and discoveries of knowledges. Vice Chancellor, sir. In my attempt, my research is to look at philosophy and what it did, I have examined a number of issues. For instance, I look at metaphysics for the human person. then one of the knowledges that you can employ here to therapeutize is to find out that humanity is not just a perceived. Humanity is a quality. You have to bear that in mind. As one central thing you take away from the operations of therapeutic philosophy. Two, that the person, not personality, not personhood, the person is the most perfect expression of being. And also that to actualize this person is the essence of therapeutic philosophy. You have Ukpokolo, 2009, and others. You have therapeutic philosophy and epistemology. Here, we find out that knowledge is not produced, like I said, in this program. And knowing is the transmission of form. And also, knowing is an intercourse. If one is not like what he or she says he or she knows, he doesn't know it. So what we know, we are like. We participate in it. Now references there. Therapeutic philosophy and culture. The major central issue here also is the relationship between the human person and culture is that of formation, not production. You hear people will tell you that man is product of culture. I'm Dean of Social Sciences. Excuse me. You have therapeutic philosophy and education. Here, the major issue here is to show that education joins with philosophy to liberate the human being from the ignominies of being that he has or she has. To join together philosophy and education. That's why I said that education, which means educare, which is to bring out, to carry out, to set free. Join with education, love of wisdom will help to free the human person. Therapeutic philosophy and science. Science is knowledge, science here, and it's made up of beliefs, theories, hypotheses, laws. And these are themselves subject to interpretation by the philosopher. And philosophy has come up to actually interrogate these worldviews of science and test how knowledge they are actually knowledge, how far of knowledge they are. Then the second thing is also to know that philosophy deploys the scientific personality in dealing with environment, plus systematicity of science. This is I reveal in most of my papers, which are here listed. Therapeutic philosophy and the African experience. Vice Chancellor, as an African scholar, we know that we all advocate in helping the African experience to be set free and liberated from epistemic disaster. Some people call it Nigeria happens to the person. Is in need. It's a situation that is in need of therapy. It's a therapeutic case. You also have a lot of them. Therapeutic philosophy and healthcare delivery. This is very true because philosophy is just to heal. Therapy, to say that therapy is medical, is to speak analytic statements. You say philosophy is therapy, is to say that is what you have in the predicate term is contained what you have in the subject term. So they are the same thing. It's an analytic statement. You say that philosophy is therapy. Now, I will go on now to look at some other areas where we have examined. I call this therapeutic philosophy in my recent research engagements, taking philosophy to town. In doing this, Vice Chancellor, I organized a number of workshops which the professor from School of Oriental and African Studies, Professor Elvis Mavidon, we had a number of workshops. One of them happened here in Ibadan, which is a workshop on street philosophy. It was titled Sakra, Humor, Resilience, and the Essentiality of Suffering. So you see, we discussed on Sakra, which is not really a case of poverty that comes from a people that comes after great amount of spending and wealth. It was discussed here. And after that, we went to Benin in 2024 to another workshop, still on typical of the town, which dealt with disability problem, called that Understanding the Indigenous Ontologies and Epistemologies of Disability. There, it was found that disability actually is not just a matter for medicine alone, it's ontological, it's structural, it's emotional. And what we came out with in that workshop is that disability, properly understood, if you look at who are actually disabled, you find that they are actually can be referred to as differently able. And so it is. So when we went to United Kingdom 2025, we repeated that same workshop, but this time with a formulated title. That is Caring for the Differently Able in Nigeria. Now, we also went further to look at areas of therapeutic philosophy and community service, where we talk about aspects of philosophy that looks like leadership programs. We talk about leadership in Nigeria, leadership in the world, leadership in society. Now look at leadership problem actually will have to do with not choosing between task and relationship, but how to combine the question of task and relationship to give a robust result. And we had several engagements in that workshop. After which, I now talk about followership and leadership. Still talking about the people of the pattern. In this case, I use myself as a personal example where I have acted as a leader in one of the church's spirituality, Catholic Catholicism, where I have served as a leader, not only in Nigeria, but at the whole of West Africa and the West Africa, representing Rome. And there, I was actually faced with a very unique situation. I was seen as a philosopher. Those people who are in the California church, they see me as a philosopher, a man who is mad for Paul, that this man is not spiritual. You know? But when I come back to school, I meet my friends and I tell them about charismatic, they say you are not academic. So I was a special case. And that's what it was a case of trying to marry faith and reason, which actually is the only way we can fly this craft of translation for truth. We won't get there. We must marry faith and reason according to the code. Conclusion. Philosophy, rightly understood, is actually therapy. And I see this statement is an analytic statement because the concept of therapy is contained in the understanding of philosophy. So, if this is the case, then we have to look for ways of bringing in philosophy to make it a thing for all of us. The philosophy can therefore can serve as a correctional center. Now, we also said that philosophy has to do with formation and not production. And philosophy has to deal with ideas, not just curriculum content, and so on. What I said before. We look at what I refer to as recommendations. There's quite a few of them. I make the recommendations. But one is to know that to combat the wounds and the pains we have in the human being, we need the therapy of philosophy. Philosophy is not just a thing for ideas and argumentation. Philosophy, as we know it from the Greek word, is an English word we know that comes from philo and sophia, law and wisdom. I don't know anybody who is saying that will not want to engage with love and wisdom. Love for the sake of love, not love for the sake of infatuation. And wisdom for the sake of wisdom, not wisdom for the sake of selfishness. And then we also suggest that we have to engage universities and schools and centers to understand creating centers for philosophical counseling that we can help people to look at critical reasoning, thinking, ethical problems, moral issues, existential matters. It will help us to deal with issues. Acknowledgement. Well, Chancellor, I have an unreserved gratitude to my father, Christopher Ukpokolo. I will forgive the Deputy Vice Chancellor when he called my father's name. I will tell you later what the name is. Now, I also thank God to my mother. Both of them were the instrument used by God to fathom me, to make me, to form me, to scoop me until the past time. My father those days was so wonderful that when I went to school, every letter I wrote to him, I would receive with a pack, because he will write reply my own under what he had written, after working my own, pack it together with his own and send. I was having a bulk of envelope whenever I get a letter from my father. Sometimes he will write like, I am ashamed of you. When I look back today, I'm very happy because he actually made me. So that right from time when I was in primary 6, when it became difficult for me to even see the board, he knew what to do. He sent me to Benin and made sure I had the glasses that could help me. Then I was given glasses that were 11 minus 11.70. Well, like a bottle. Those in my friends called me bottle glasses. He did all that to make my life straight. He didn't have chance to spare me. I had no excuse why I didn't do well. He didn't give me any chance for failure. My siblings, Ukpokolo, acknowledged him, now in blessed memory, Theo, Stella Sylvester, Angela Florence, the rest of them acknowledge you all. You are great people. Now, my primary and secondary school. My primary school headmaster was my catechist. That was a double barrel problem for any child. If your headmaster is your catechist, if you miss in church, you will not miss it in school. How about my training? I acknowledge you, a wonderful man. My lecturers at Ekuma, great guys, Jim Broker, passed on, glory. And now my lecturers here at Ibadan, as I said, I know Professor Bello is here. He taught me, I want to say he taught me everything I knew. Well, I don't think he can agree with that too. But I almost, because he taught me logic, philosophy of language, philosophy of mind, and he supervised my MA dissertation and my PhD thesis. So that right now, when I am writing anything, I still feel his breath over my shoulder. To the extent that I almost thought that I totally said, have you had taught me in BA and MA and PhD? Maybe I could have actually had a PhD in Bello. My training was wonderful as a student under them. It was a great experience. Now, my university friends and colleagues, are great people. My classmate is here, George Moore, is a professor of logic and critical thinking, you know, in the Federal University of Agriculture. That man is a wonderful friend. Thank you very much. My other friends in the faculty, other faculty, there are many, you know. In my faculty, we have Gogo is there, you will have a Bokari, you will have a Silver, many of them, you know. I'm an old horse in that place, so I know the old people. Now, I am grateful to all of them. My department of philosophy, my home, my central family, I came in there in 1984. I lived all my youth life, married my wife, raised my children to this level. So the Vice Chancellor was like, I really want to apply for citizenship of UI. I hope I will not be denied. So I want to thank the Vice Chancellor and all the officers for what they have been in my life, for their friendship, particularly the 13th Vice Chancellor, who is great. I want to thank God for him. He is a great friend, great man. Then, I want to thank God for all other people who are my wonderful people. We have Professor Atuwale is here, the Vice Chancellor of Boston University. The Professor, Vice Chancellor of Boston University is also here. There are many, and I thank you all. I welcome you. I acknowledge you. My friends at the seminary of Stanford, or the seminary of Dominican University, seminary of Sedabat, and then the one now, the US one, Don Bosco. I acknowledge you all. You are people. You are. I love you all of you. You are wonderful. You see them there. They are white. As their clothes are white, so their hearts are white. Now, I want all my international collaborators. I thank God for you all. Then my in-laws. My in-laws are here. I must say this so that I won't take their. So I thank God for Naka, people, my in-laws. Then Buta, people, represented by Sydney, a great guy, who is my friend. And then the rest of them, the Koji of Uromi, they are here. Thank you very much. Now, other universities are present here. I know LASU is here, Lagos University is here, Jos is here, Unibeck is here, Equiman is here, Yamin, Abraka is here. All these people, they are recognized. I can make you all. So the Boston University, you are here, I welcome you all. I thank you for your love and guidance. Then my parish priest, Dr. Tony, is here. I thank you so much for being here. I believe my Archbishop is here. You are my Lord, spiritual. His Grace, Archbishop Gabriel, thank you very much. And then my parishioners, friends, and members of the Secretary of the CMO and CWO, they are all great people. They are here. I want to thank my wife. Before that, let me tell my children that your mother is my mother also. She was also my mother. So before you came, she has been my mother. My mother left, she became so. She has been a wife, a sister, a mother, a friend, and to crown it all, she now studied anthropology, the study of man. And she's using me. I'm a practical laboratory. My academic associations, Japan and Pan, I thank you all. And all, look, it's not, I cannot possibly mention everybody that is association. Please, if I did not mention this, forgive me. In all, I want to give thanks to God Almighty. He, all of us, who formed it in his own image, entrusting the whole world to his care, so that in serving him alone, the Creator, we will have dominion over all creatures. And even when, through disobedience, we lost his friendship, he did not abandon us to the domain of death, but he came in mercy to the aid of God. And so that as we are dead, he came and delivered us. By the power of the Holy Spirit, and born regularly, he made him a man. As a man, he shared his life for us. And as we went back, he sent the Holy Spirit to us as the first fruit for all those who believe, so that bringing to perfection his work in the world, he will sanctify creation to the full. Vice Chancellor, sir. Respected audience, this is my inaugural. Thank you very much.